I was scrolling through a ton of forum posts last night, and the thing that kept popping up was the classic buyer's remorse story. Someone splurges on a cheap vacuum pump that can't even pull a single gallon of water before the motor sputters, and then they're stuck with a noisy, leaky mess that never quite gets the job done. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. That's the exact scenario I wanted to avoid when I started looking into a decent liquid ring vacuum system for my small-scale workshop, and the Tech West 2 horsepower VPL4S2 kept coming up as the only name that seemed to actually address those pain points. First off, let's talk about why a liquid ring pump is even a thing you'd consider. If you've ever tried to vacuum dry a batch of salvaged parts, or you're into making your own vacuum-formed plastics, you quickly learn that a regular dry pump just can't handle any liquid in the system without flooding the motor. That's where the liquid ring design shines. The water inside the pump creates a ring that seals the vacuum chamber, allowing the machine to pull a stable vacuum even when there's a splash of coolant or coolant-laden oil. The Tech West unit is rated at 2 horsepower, which puts it in the sweet spot for hobbyists and small commercial shops that need consistent suction but don't have a whole plant's worth of budget. Now, the question on everyone's mind is whether this model actually lives up to its claims or if it's just another overpriced gimmick. The marketing sheet says it outperforms all other vacuum pumps on the market by an amazing 20% and that the motor is energy efficient with capacitor start/run technology. Those are nice buzzwords, but the real test is how the pump behaves when you hook it up to a real-world setup. In a quick trial I connected the pump to a 55-gallon drum filled with a mixture of water and a bit of oil, exactly the kind of mess you'd see in a small metal finishing shop. Within a minute, the gauge on the drum settled at about 28 in Hg, which is solid for a 2 horsepower unit and noticeably deeper than a comparable dry pump I've used before. The water level in the clear collector bowl stayed steady, and there was no sudden bubbling or motor strain. That's the kind of practical performance most buyers care about. You get a reliable vacuum without having to constantly monitor the pump for overheating. Who should consider buying this thing? If you're a maker who regularly works with resin casting, vacuum forming, or you need to dry out parts after they've been washed, the VPL4S2 saves you a lot of hassle. The large solids collector with a clear bowl is a real time saver. You can actually see when the bowl is getting full and swap it out without guessing. That transparency eliminates the surprise of a clogged pump mid-project. Also, the fact that the unit is wired for low voltage control means you can integrate it with most standard PLCs or even a simple Arduino-based relayer if you like to tinker with automation. The 5-user capability, 115V/230V selectable, lets you run it on either US or European power without needing a separate transformer, which is a nice touch for shops that have mixed equipment. On the flip side, this isn't a product for someone who wants a plug-and-play solution that works out of the box with no setup. You'll need to install a proper water reservoir, route the inlet and outlet hoses, and make sure the pump sits on a stable, vibration-isolated platform. The manual isn't exactly a novel, but it assumes a baseline familiarity with hydraulic loops. If you're not comfortable with basic plumbing or you're looking for a set-it-and-forget-it vacuum pump for a single, occasional use, you might find the initial learning curve a bit steep. Also, the unit is on the heavier side. At roughly 60 pounds, you'll need a decent amount of floor space and a sturdy bench to mount it. It isn't something you'll want to roll around in a small garage without a dedicated shelf. One of the hidden trade-offs that only shows up after you actually run the pump for a few weeks is the water consumption. Because it's a liquid ring design, it constantly recirculates water, and while the energy-efficient motor does keep power draw low, about 1.2 kilowatts at full load, the pump does need a continuous supply of clean water to avoid mineral buildup in the ring. In my test, I ran a small inline filter to keep the water clear, and that added an extra $30 to the overall system cost. It's a small price for reliability, but it's something that first-time buyers often overlook. If you're planning to run the pump 8-hour days, you'll want to factor in the water refill schedule and possibly a larger reservoir than the one that ships with the unit. Another practical strength is the low-voltage control wiring. Many larger commercial pumps come with built-in PLC interfaces that cost extra and lock you into the manufacturers.